Hi, I'm Shane with Wedding Win, and today I have Cheryl and Scott, but with Cakes by Cheryl. Cheryl and Scott, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
So Cheryl, she obviously does wedding cakes. Her and Scott do wedding cakes. Beautiful cakes, by the way.
Thank you.
Very nice. So what inspired you guys to get into the wedding cake business?
Well, first I just love baking, so it was so much fun just to bake a cake. But then when I learned you can go a little more crazy and make a bride happy, and just by looking at a cake, it's kind of fun.
I married into it.
Now, how long have you guys been, well, I guess the answer might be different. How long have you been crafting cakes for?
Oh my goodness, you're going to age me here. I started baking cakes when I was 20, so we're going on 22 years that I've been in the industry. But wedding cakes on my own with Cake by Cheryl has been 14 years this coming March.
Oh, and Scott, what about you?
14 years plus a little bit because we were doing them prior to Cake by Cheryl opening, just not as a business through Kijiji and such. So when we started to get busy with that, Cake by Cheryl opened and it became a lot more serious.
How do you approach the design process of your cakes? Because your cakes are really detailed. So how do you do that?
A lot of the times it's the brides coming to me with the photos of cakes that they really want. And I tell them to bring about 3 different photos of 3 different designs. And sometimes we just amalgamate the design, or sometimes we just choose whichever one they like best and which is in their budget. We just go through a fun little process of narrowing it down again with the images, trying different flavors, and then we just go from there. So it's a good little...
Because everything's custom made, it's really whatever the brides and grooms want, and we enjoy the creativity aspect of it because it's more fun to do new cakes, original cakes, as opposed to replicating the same thing over and over again. So,
can you guys describe your most unique and memorable cake you've made?
Oh my goodness, that would have to be the 13-tier cake that I did. I think the kids were 2, so that's pretty early on in Cake by Cheryl. I got a call like beginning of January for a cake shortly thereafter, like maybe 9 days later, saying we want 13 tiers, candied flowers. And I'm like, oh, okay. I had to do over 200 candied roses. And then I had to do a 13-tier cake and just trying to like figure out how I'm going to assemble it. Do I do it part at the bakery? Do I bring it to the hall and do all of it there? Like I've never had to bring a step stool to a cake setup before, and I actually had a stool and I barely reached the top.
Wow.
and even when you're saying it was 13 tiers, it was 13 tiers high, but the base of it was 5 2-tiered cakes. So there was quite an abundance of cake at that particular wedding.
Yeah. There was leftovers.
I would go for a different answer personally because I like the original style cakes. Just recently she did a dragon egg cake. So very Game of Thronesy, where it was a large dragon egg in the middle and then cake pops in a nest all around it. And we've done some other ones like Ghostbuster cakes, or just cakes that are often geared more towards the grooms that have they're not your stereotypical wedding cake. And I find those ones fun and interesting to do.
Those are the ones who'll come into the bakery and help with.
Yeah, those sound really, really cool. So how do you guys incorporate your couple's personalities into the cake?
Well, we sit there for a while. We chat. I get to know a little bit about their history together, what they do. Like if they have certain hobbies that they want to incorporate into it, or sports teams or something like that. So I've done a lot of the peekaboo styles, where the one side of the cake is the bride's pretty side, I guess you can call it. And then the other side will have like, I don't know, what did we have? We had Harry Potter on the back of one. We had aliens and Predator images on the back.
Zombies.
Walking Dead zombies poking out of the bottom of the cake, like clawing through it. So, they just put a little bit of their own personality, their own funness, I guess, into it. Funness is not a word.
Well, yeah, there's little Easter eggs periodically, like little Iron Mans or Spider-Mans popping out from the bottom of the cakes, or that hidden peekaboo style is quite popular.
Or even getting like their cake toppers designed specifically with a theme in mind. So like have the bride and groom, but they'll incorporate their dogs. So we can do that into it, or their cats. I think I had one topper that had 2 cats, 3 dogs, and the bride and groom in there. So just little fun things like that.
Or even just individual slogans that you might not be able to find on a pre-made cake topper. We have the ability to make that now, or have them made.
Make it yourself?
Yeah, we have some friends with 3D printers and wood etching and such, so we have a couple of options on how to get things done.
Yeah.
Now, you can't eat that, can you?
No.
No? Okay.
No, but it's all food grade
Oh, cool.
materials. Yeah.
Awesome. What are your most popular cake flavors?
Oh my goodness, it has to be the carrot cake. Anyone who tries my carrot cake always says it's the best that they ever had. If people don't like carrot cake and come into a consult, I still make them try it. Like, even though they're like, no, I'm not going to try. I'm like, you have to have one bite. And by the end of that consult, I usually have them convinced that one tier of their wedding should be carrot.
Oh, so there's different flavors for like different tiers?
Oh yeah.
You
A
can.
4-tier cake, you can have 3 different flavors.
We always recommend 2, because what happens if you're sitting at a table of 8 or 10 and 3 flavors or 4 flavors get served, people might get upset about not having the flavor they want. But most of the time you're going as a couple, so each person will get one of each flavor, and you can trade it or eat half of your significant others. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you offer any unique or unconventional flavors?
Red velvet is becoming more popular these days. I usually fill that with like a chocolate ganache and raspberry preserves, as well as cream cheese icing. And the most traditional version of that cake would have been like red velvet with the cream cheese. So adding the chocolate and the raspberry really kicks it up a notch. And then banana chocolate chip is a little bit old school and bringing back to being a kid and mom making banana cake. So
yeah, and we've also done flavors for people at their request as well, where we will play around with recipes. I know I've done like pistachio cake, the champagne flavored cakes,
the Persian love cake, and what else is coming to mind? Jamaican rum cakes, just things that aren't necessarily on our everyday menu, so to speak, but we're always willing to try.
So doing cakes, do you guys get anybody that has like dietary restrictions, and how do you cater to that?
So I can't cater to everything. It's too difficult, and for what it is, like price points will just skyrocket on certain flavor or certain ingredients. So I do have a gluten-free chocolate cake that is to die for. It's like literally just like melts on your tongue. And you can pretty much pair it up with like any filling, because most fillings are gluten-free. And then we can have it decorated like the wedding cake as well. But I don't do the vegan, unfortunately. Again, it's just too expensive to have those ingredients on hand for the amount that I actually make them. But gluten's usually the one that I would do.
I like the gluten-free chocolate cake when you add some mint in there, and it's a nice after-eight flavor. It's rich. It's almost like a brownie.
Now, has anyone requested a sugar-free cake?
All the time.
Yeah, is it possible?
I'm sure it is, but
Wouldn't taste very good.
You do lose like the flavor and the quality in the actual cake and stuff like that when you start playing around with different things. All my cakes are 100% homemade, so they have been designed with real sugar in it. So when you start playing around with the sugar substitutes, it can alter the recipe.
You see, Shane, cake is a dessert, and desserts have sugar in them.
Right. Okay, I was just hoping for a sugar-free cake, but not today.
No.
How do you collaborate with couples to bring their vision to life? Like, do you sit down with them and like draw it, or like do they just give you their vision? I'm curious.
So they come in for a consult, and usually that can be anywhere from like 45 minutes to sometimes 3 hours. The one guy brought pizza one day. But I have them bring up to 3 images of cake designs that they are interested in. Prior to coming in, they also send me a list of flavors they want to try. So I let them try up to about 6 different cakes and 6 different filling flavors. And we do those in cupcake form. So I have them all prettied up with the icing and stuff like that. And we sit down and we just talk and go over, like, again, what interests they have and what, made them choose the cakes that they are looking at. Then we break down costs, like what their budget is, because that will also change what cake they might go to, because some cakes are going to be a little bit more expensive than others. So then, we just sit down, we just chat, learn each other a little bit more and what they're interested in.
Well, as far as cake sizes go, it depends largely on how big the wedding is going to be and when you're going to serve the cake, whether it's going to be the primary dessert or served at the afterglow, can change the numbers and the size of the cake. So from that, we can decide the basics as to whether or not you're looking at a 2-tier, 3-tier, 5-tier cake. Now, if somebody is having a small wedding and still wants a grand cake, you can add fake tiers as well to increase the sizing. But there's a consultation process. They come in for an hour, give or take, and we decide flavors. They come in for a tasting, and we go over different designs, choose what will and won't work, what they think will look good. Sometimes we stack up cake pans to give them a visual or sketch it out.
Yeah.
But
all my paper copy contracts have a nice little sketch on the back of what cakes will kind of look like.
Awesome.
Well, sometimes it's important to really have that visual too, because what two people are envisioning can sometimes not be the same thing, right?
Right. So how do you guys coordinate with like the venues and the wedding planners and like maybe the florist, like when you bring cake in? Like how does that work?
So normally I like to be at the venue about 2 hours prior to the guests arriving to the hall. That way I can get the cake in there without like bumping into the guests and whatnot. So I usually call the hall and be like, okay, what time can I get in? So that's the venue that I can actually contact with. The florists, we try to set up to make sure the flowers are there ahead of time and how many flowers I'm going to need. Because sometimes the bride and groom don't tell the florist that much. They just say, we need flowers for the cake. So I'll get the phone call from the Fine Floral or somebody and be like, hey, we were told flowers. What do you need? So we'll sit down, we'll go over the design and what I've drawn out for the bride and groom on where we're positioning the flowers. And I'll do that with the florist. Other than that, I normally don't see anyone or really need to talk to any other vendor, unfortunately.
Potentially the decorator if the table's being done up. But we through the consult we'll figure out who those vendors are, and we have a good network at this point in time. So we get in contact with most people so that we can coordinate delivery times.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious, has anyone messed one of your cakes up? And how do you deal with that? Like, I'm sure it's happened over the years.
You mean like walking upstairs and tripping with the cake in your hand?
Yes, yeah. Has that happened?
No. Never happened.
Never
I saved the cake. Damaged myself. Saved the cake.
Smart.
Yeah.
I always have a little cupcake bag with me. I don't know if you've ever seen it when I've gone on deliveries and you're there, but inside it has a lot of stuff to help fix cakes if they need to be fixed, or to attach flowers to. I'll have like I'll have ribbons, I'll have scissors and glue and toothpicks and wires and floral tape in there.
Oh, so you'll have all the supplies just in case something happens.
Yeah,
there's been a couple of near disasters, but we've always been able to get through them. One actually predates Cake by Cheryl, but had somebody break suddenly
really
and we broke, and the cake shifted in the car and then stopped suddenly when it hit a stopping point in the car, and it went, and you ended up going back and tearing apart somebody else's cake that was for the next day and redesigning that cake, got it back out quickly, and then just remade the other
the bride
cake.
Was happy with it.
We're lucky that we had that extra flavor at the time. We also, worst case scenario, we've never had to do this before. We have styrofoam cakes at, for display purposes at our shop. So worst case scenario, they still have something visual there and we can get slab cakes out quickly. That would be a worst case scenario because it wouldn't be exactly what they ordered. And luckily we haven't had to go down that road yet, but we'd figure out a way.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't have like random cakes just lying around the bakery at all times. Like everything's custom ordered, freshly baked for that particular wedding. So I don't have anything in the freezer that I can just pull out. So
you did 14 years, hundreds of weddings a year, and you've never had a problem like that? That's really good.
Not one that we couldn't solve.
That's really good. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this, but everybody needs to hear this. What sets you apart from other cake companies?
My cakes are 100% homemade. So the cakes are going to be kind of like when you go back to your parents or your mom baking you a cake at home. Like they're going to just have that homemade feel to them. It's like a nice hominess to it. Everything is freshly baked So if your wedding's on a Saturday, the earliest it's ever going to be baked is going to be the Thursday. Just because I need time to bake it, decorate it, and all that fun stuff and deliver it. Yeah. Well,
She's being modest. She's been doing it for, 20 years, give or take. And she's gotten very good at her craft. She does clean work. An average person might not pick this up, but certainly as a baker looking at another baker's cake, you can spot errors. But Cheryl's work generally is very clean. She gets a lot of compliments on the flavors of her cakes. I believe you have had them at numerous weddings before. And we get a lot of positive feedback from our customers that the cake flavor exceeded their expectations as well as the designs. And because we're not replicating the same design over and over again, it adds an extra layer of learning new techniques and having more in the toolbox perhaps than an average baker might.
So have you guys noticed any, so I guess you do a lot of different designs, but have you noticed any like trends happening lately?
Definitely naked cakes became extremely popular during COVID. I don't know if it's just because of the simplicity of it and people were doing smaller weddings and just wanted the easy peasy cake. But naked was huge there.
So for those who don't know what a naked cake might be, it is basically a cake where the icing is so thin around the outside that you can see the cake right through. Now there are somewhat issues with it drying out around the edges. So when we do them, we always recommend either a carrot cake or a chocolate cake for those particular cakes, because with our recipes, they hold the moisture better than anything else. So that was certainly a popular trend.
Yeah.
Buttercream exterior cakes, just simplicity with lines, vertical or horizontal lines, or a sloppy swooshy pattern on it, accented by flowers, has also become quite popular.
Yes. I found fondant has kind of disappeared a little bit, at least in the Niagara area. Like when I first started in 2010, fondant was huge. I was probably doing 90% fondant cakes to 10% buttercream. It's kind of done the flip.
As have colors. I mean, bold colors were really quite popular for a while. The peekaboo cakes that we were talking about earlier were popular for a few years as well. Everything just, comes and goes. It's a matter of keeping up with the trends. And
it'll do a switch again soon, I'm sure.
Do you guys offer tasting for the wedding cakes?
Yeah, so at the time of the consult, they can choose up to 6 different cakes and 6 different filling flavors to sample from the list on my website. If there's like a specific flavor that's not on the site that they really, really want, I will usually try to accommodate that. I just don't do anything with a peanut.
No peanuts. You're peanut free?
I can't say peanut free because I do carry other nuts in the bakery, and depending on the facility that those nuts are prepared in, they might have peanut in them. But I just say I don't carry peanuts in the bakery.
How do you help couples choose like the size of the cake? Because I mean, every wedding is a different size. So how do you help them pick the right size?
So when they come in, one of the first questions I ask is how many people are invited to the wedding? And then the second question would be, is the cake going to be used for your main dessert or for the late night buffet? Once they tell me if it's the late night or the main, that will help me figure out what size cake they're going to use. Because for the late night, you do not need to feed every single person at the wedding cake, because people are going to be so full from having like a 3, 4, 5 course meal on top of the hors d'oeuvres and, a little bit of alcohol in there. They may not want a big piece of cake or any cake at all. So we cut the numbers down by 2/3 for the late night. So if you have 120 guests, you're looking at an 80-person cake. And then portion sizes are going to be smaller as well. You're going to go to like a 1 by 2 inch piece for the late night, opposed to like a 2 by 2 inch piece.
she has all of her cake tiers broken down by by size and shape as well, because as you can imagine, a circular cake would not get you, or it's like a 10-inch circle would not get you as many pieces as a 10-inch square. So depending on what the bride and groom want as far as cake shape and size of tiers, she can get the numbers pretty close.
So how do you guys handle logistics? Like, I know some days you have like 5 wedding cakes going out in a day because you're so popular. How do you do that?
Oh, there's a lot of stress and planning involved in that. So we got to figure out what areas within Niagara, because I only deliver within Niagara. So we have to figure out which cakes are going where. And we try to coordinate which cakes can be done at the same time. So if I have like 2 that are going out to Niagara on the Lake, well, guess what? Those 2 are going out at the same time. It just makes it a little bit easier.
Periodically, we'll break up and take 2 cars in 2 different directions if need be. But generally, we can find a sequence where, you know, all the Grimsby cakes go, or Grimsby and Vineland might go together, and then Niagara on the Lake and Niagara Falls just try to bunch them, basically.
I do like to have Scott with me on my deliveries, though, because he is my muscles. Sometimes cakes can be a little heavy the taller they get, so they're a little too much for me, especially trying to open up a door and carry a cake. So.
Especially when they're 13 tiers.
Can you guys share a story when you went above and beyond for a couple?
Unfortunately, when Hernders burnt down, we had a couple brides there, and I was able to, you know, help them find either new locations or, you know, was willing to drive a little further out to their next location of choice, which sometimes was out of the Niagara region. So we've done that a couple times.
I'll use a couple of different examples. When Cake by Cheryl first opened, actually, she was pregnant with twins and ended up going, well, not into labor, but was hospitalized 3 months ahead, more than 3 months ahead of time. And unfortunately, we still had some cakes on the books at that point in time. So we did call in some baker friends of ours to come in and help out, and didn't miss any cakes, even though Cheryl was in hospital for a while. Another one I'll just say is we had a couple get a wedding cake from us, and then shortly thereafter, I don't remember if it was an anniversary cake, I think it was a birthday cake, they wanted a
their
camera.
Baby reveal.
No, different story. You can tell yours after if you want. But they wanted a camera. And we just took the picture from the thank you card they sent us and put it on the little viewfinder on the back of the camera to add that little extra touch for them. So it was their wedding day photo on the back of the camera for, I forget again if it was birthday or anniversary, but I thought it was a nice touch and they loved it and commented on it immediately after.
That is really nice, you guys. I want to hear your story now.
So early on in Cake by Cheryl, I did a wedding cake in November, and it was a suitcase wedding cake. And then in April, I was taking the twins for a little walk, and Scott calls me. He's like, "You got a client here picking up a cake?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have a cake going out today." And he's like, "Well, they're saying you do." So I, rushed home from the walk with the kids and came in, and he was my groom from November. He's like, "Yeah, my wife's been in contact with you about our baby reveal cake for today." And I'm like, "No, pretty positive." He's like, "Yeah, it's a beehive cake, what we're going to be, right?" And I'm like, "Nope, not ringing a bell." And he's like, "But she just talked to you yesterday." I'm like, "On the phone?" He's like, "No, email." I'm like, "Oh, what email did they use?" And he's like, "Well, Cakes by Cheryl, or cakesbycheryl@gmail.com or something like that."
It was something very early on, but there was another business with a very similar name that was in Pennsylvania, I believe.
Yeah, they were Cakes by Cheryl, and I was Cake by Cheryl.
Oh, wow.
So they were contacting this person in Pennsylvania for their cake. And it's funny because I read the first email that she sent because he showed it to me. And it's like, "I don't know if you remember me, but you did our suitcase wedding cake in November. We'd really love for you to do our baby reveal." And the person's response was, "Oh, I'm so happy you remembered me." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a weird comment. How many suitcase wedding cakes has this person done?" Well, anyway, so we figured out, obviously, I didn't get the email, so I didn't have the cake. But I'm like, "Well, what time do you need this cake for?" And they're like, "Well, we need to be leaving for Toronto in about, an hour and a half because the shower is in Toronto." I'm like, "Okay, give me as long as you can, and I will try to put something together for you." So I did my best. I baked off cake on baking trays to get them baked quicker than I would normally. And I filled it and I iced it, and it wasn't the prettiest cake that I put out.
But it was a fun little beehive.
But I got them a beehive cake with their baby reveal colors inside.
Within hours.
Oh, I was a little stressed.
Wow.
But I did it.
That was really nice of you to do that.
And since then, we put in some fail safes to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Like .cas and having an actual
Canadian flag on our site.
Well, yeah, but Cake by Cheryl that was another issue too, actually. Not particularly relevant, but there's a Crown Plaza in both the United States, Niagara Falls, and Canada, Niagara Falls, that we did not realize until we had to go across the border to deliver a cake.
Yeah, sometimes I'll get phone calls from couples from Niagara Falls, New York.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't service across the border.
Yeah.
We had one sneak by.
Yeah.
Oh,
I had to get my suit.
Oh,
Say I
wow.
was
So
a
as long
guest
as
at
we
the
were
wedding.
a guest at the wedding, we could bring the cake.
oh, good. Yeah.
So Scott went to the wedding and I delivered 3 other cakes.
Scott, Cheryl, thank you very much for coming on to Wedding Win. You can find Cheryl and Scott's website at cakebycheryl.ca, and you can visit their profile on weddingwin.ca. You can see the full interview there.